In just a few seconds. It's starting now. Good evening. Welcome to Talk the Wellness Tea with Dr. Chalice. I am so excited for tonight's discussion. Tonight is our inaugural Boys to Men Health Forum, where we are talking spiritual, physical, and mental health. We are talking about the whole person. We have a whole panel of awesome guests. I'm going to briefly start by introducing each guest, and then we're going to dive right into the discussion. So first we have Reverend Dr. Pastor Curry of Easy on Fair Baptist Church and Wholeness Community Center in Delaware. Welcome, Dr. Curry.
You.
And then we have Isaiah Jenkins, who is my son. He's a student athlete and he is a lifeguard. Hi, Isaiah.
Hey, Mom.
All right. And next we have Caleb Williams, who is also a high school student and the son of Spring Williams, founder of Inspiring Life Together, which is a breast cancer surviving organization that supports breast cancer surviving mothers like myself. Hey, Caleb.
Hi.
And then we have my godson, Malachi Mitchell, joining us all the way from Las Vegas, well, Henderson, right outside of Las Vegas. He is a high school graduate, and he is also the technical director at his church, House of Judah, where his father is the pastor and his mother, who is my sister, Ivory. Hey, Malachi.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. And then we have Pastor Jonathan Leith and Joshua Leith, father and son. Joshua is a youth leader, a student athlete, and a future business leader. And Pastor Jonathan is also a father and an author. Hi, Jonathan and Pastor Joshua.
Hello, Dr. Chalice. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. We may have a few other panelists that may be joining us late. I know someone just landed from the airport, but we're going to get this discussion started. So I just want to open a discussion by saying there really are some unique challenges that face boys and men, especially men of color, in the physical, mental, and spiritual realm. And to break down stigmas, opening communication is very important. So I would just love for this to be an open discussion. This is your discussion. I'm just here to kind of moderate. What all do you guys think are important in terms of spiritual, mental, and physical health?
I'll start.
Amen.
So when it comes to mental health, I really think it's about like the mindset. Because like without like the proper mindset, you start to kind of shut down a little bit and feel a type of way. And I feel like that, like sometimes as men, when we care about stuff and other people, we kind of let in too close. That really let down the mindset to really be able to really function and say that you got it without like having the type of way where it's like, what do I do? How do I figure this out? That kind of thing.
Thank you for sharing, Isaiah. Anyone else want to chime in? Oh, Caleb?
I think a good part of it is knowing your priorities, like knowing what is most important, and just having that, knowing, like me personally, it would be like focus on God, school, my athletic life, and then everything else, like once I have that in check, then I know where everything else comes in after.
Love it, Caleb.
Yeah, mental health is very important. It's it keeps you intact. I think knowing your limitations on what you can do and what you can't do is very important when it comes to mental health.
Yes. Thank you, Malachi.
You know, as a young kid growing up in the projects, I learned early that in order to be whole, you had to, one, make sure you were aware of yourself. and I did hear one of the panelists talk about the mindset and also about priorities. But there was and I'm very holistic, but there was a scripture that I keep in mind often when speaking with young brothers who are trying to get from one place to another. And that's the words of the Apostle Paul. He said, when I was a child, I did three things. I spoke, I act, and I thought like a child. And sometimes some of our behaviors, because we lose, in my opinion, we lose our priorities and our mindset, and it's caught up in the culture that we're in. We are not defined as men when we express true feelings, true beliefs. But in order for us to become whole, we have to be able to have a transformation of the mind, of our mentality, of our spirituality, and of our physicality. Because again, if you're not holistic in your approach, there are people who find themselves in church. And I'm a pastor of a rather nice-sized congregation, and there are some people who become very churchy, but they're nothing else. And that is unbalanced. And I preach that here. I used to say when a lot of our young people were in younger, lower school, that, for you to say you are singing on the choir, you're doing all this great stuff for God, but yet you're not living a certain way outside of the church, it speaks to not paying attention to the totality of the individual. In order for me, you, our brothers, to move from that childhood phase to the manhood, or even into that adolescent time, there has to be a real balance in one's life. And if there is no balance, if the mindset is not right, if the priorities are not in order, then what we often find is that the life becomes unbalanced. And while it's unbalanced, things are easily able to seep in. So I'll kind of leave it there for right now.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Pastor Curry.
You give me 1,000 titles.
Anybody else want to share? So what do you guys think in terms of emotions? I always say I cannot imagine this this thing that men, like, you have to suck up your emotions and you can't have emotions. Like, as a woman, I cannot even imagine like trying to act like I don't have emotions, because we're all human and we all have emotions. And the fact that boys and men can't express those emotions, or if you express that vulnerability, there's like this viewpoint that you're seen as weak. Do you all have any thoughts on that?
It's cultural. I'm not going to jump in too fast, too much more. It's a cultural stigma that is very unhealthy. The reason why suicide is so high, even especially now in the African American community, but in people of color community, is because we've been taught through ignorance that a real man doesn't cry, that a real man doesn't express emotions, because that's a weak individual. That's a person who have not taken control of his life. It's just the opposite. A healthy life is one who expresses truth to themselves. And then if they find the help they need, and I'm going back to Paul's statement, I thought, I act, there are certain things I've done as a child, but when I become a man, I realized I need each other. I need someone to help me become the better me. So therefore, to get some support is something that we can do, is express what we're feeling. Sometimes you can't express it to everybody, but you have to be able to express it to someone, because if you keep that stuff bottled up in you because you've been taught you're not a real man, suck it up, that is very unhealthy. And it's the best word I can find is ignorant, because it does not speak to the truth. It doesn't make you weak because you are hurting. As a matter of fact, the mere fact that you went and found some help and you can express it speaks to your strength.
I love that, Dr. Curry. It's so true. Actually seeking help makes some people, and you're right, it is cultural, makes some people feel weak. Like reaching out for help is a sign of weakness. No, reaching out for help and support is actually a sign of strength. Now, it is important, like you said, Dr. Curry, you want to have a healthy, reciprocal support system. So, if you reach out for, things that aren't so healthy, like alcohol or drugs or sex or all of these things, overeating, any kind of addiction, pornography, different things that may be unhealthy. But if you're actually reaching out for healthy things, like whatever your sense of spirituality is. So we know there's a difference between spirituality and religion. Spirituality is a person's personal belief or their personal relationship with their higher power. And religion is actually an organized being, right? So whether it's a church, whatever it is that you identify with, and then spirituality and religion go hand in hand. So if you're Christian, you believe in God and you believe in Jesus and you go to church. That may look different for someone else, but it's so important. Religiosity and spirituality has really shown to be a buffer, especially in the Black community, to our mental health, our physical health, and our spiritual health. So I just want to briefly pause for a minute to welcome Nafis Norris. Nafis, thank you so much for joining us. Nafis Norris is a scientist, y'all. We have a young Black scientist on the call. He has his own company. It's called Nafis Innovation. So Nafis, hi, please feel free to join in on the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And as other people talk and I get the the flow of things, I will most definitely hop right in.
Great. Thanks, Nafis.
All right. Thank you.
Dr. Rhodes, I want to add the idea of this strength, as Dr. Curry shared. The picture that I have is a man who's drowning, but doesn't want to ask for help because he don't want to appear to be weak, but he would rather die than ask for help. And that is the degree to which some of us will go to. Steve Harvey jokingly said, I handle problems like a real man. He said, I stuff all my stuff down until it becomes something I can go to the doctor, a physical doctor, and handle. But spiritual and mental illness is one of the biggest proponents to an early death in people of color. I read a research study that said PTSD, when soldiers came back from Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield, they noted that a lot of the men were coming back with PTSD. Well, there was another Black psychologist who looked at the effects of that. And she said, whoa, hold up, let's look at slavery. We had 400 years of chattel slavery. Do you know how much PTSD is pent up in that? And then one other researcher said that trauma attaches to your DNA and it gets translated down through generations. So I'm dealing with grandma and grandpa stuff from like 400 years ago. Yes. And so if we don't find an outlet to get that out, then that'll stay with us and we'll pass trauma on to our next generation. And you wonder why, Johnny's got an attitude, or why, somebody they can't seem to get along. So it's important to say, I need help, and to open up and find qualified people, counselors. I was in a counselor's office one day, and I sat down to talk with her, and she put a box of tissue beside me. And I'm like, why do I need tissue? Well, about 30 minutes into it, I'm like, where are them tissues at?
Yes.
So that's important. I just wanted to add that.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Pastor Jonathan, because what you talked about, that historical perspective of trauma that dates all the way back to slavery and why we cope in ways that we cope. This whole thing about this strong man, this strong Black man, we talk a lot about the strong Black woman, but the strong Black man and everything that Black men had to endure in slavery, with watching, their women get raped or their families, being broken up. And when you talk about intergenerational trauma, the study of epigenetics talks exactly about how trauma is passed down through our DNA. Yeah. It actually doesn't change like the actual form of our DNA, and maybe our scientists can talk a little bit more about this, but how it is observed is actually changed. So the trauma is passed down through our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dr. Rose, this is Christy. I wanted to just add to that. So like Pastor Jonathan said.
That's my
Yeah,
sister, by the way. She's a nurse practitioner down in North Carolina. So go
Hi.
ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Chris.
we were talking to Christy earlier,
yeah.
Jonathan.
It's so like what Jonathan said, PTSD, anxiety, depression, these are things that are genetic. They're usually passed down if you have a first generation relative that has these symptoms, has these disorders. But what we've also got to understand with regard to mental health, there are, and for the younger guys, I want you guys to look this up later on. There are stages of development, psychological stages of development that we all progress through. There are 8 in total. It's Erik Erikson's stages of development. You have to accomplish each stage, because if you don't accomplish each stage, you can't move on like you should to the next stage. And later on in life, that catches up with you. So each of those stages has a goal that we try to accomplish. So for example, one that I just studied is stage 7, generativity versus stagnation. And in that particular stage, the goal is to create a legacy, because you show that you care, you show that you're meaningful to your family, to your community. You've done something purposeful in life. And that, like I said, that generation leads on to, your younger generations, and it's passed on through generation to generation. If you think about it, you say, oh yeah, I remember your granddaddy, he did this. That's exactly what that means. So make yourself purposeful, whatever you do, to leave that legacy. That's very important, because like I said, if you don't, then you feel like you're stuck, you become self-absorbed, and you just feel like you're just a placeholder, more or less. So just make your purpose, it's not set, purposefully in each stage of development, but like I said, make your purpose in each stage so you can move on and be successful in the next one. And like I said, mental health in the Black community is such a stigma. If you tell your best friend, hey, I think I'm depressed, the first thing they say, oh, you're crazy. You're not crazy. Don't assume that. Don't take that and say, oh, well, I can't get any help because I don't want to be labeled. That's very important. And like I said, suicide, kind of building on what Dr. Curry said, that's also passed on. If you have a first degree relative, you are at a higher risk of committing suicide. And so it all starts with environment. Everything is environmental. So it starts in the home. And so a lot of these mental health disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, that starts from things that happen in the environment, something traumatic that's happened, and that goes with you throughout life if you don't get that addressed. I'm sorry, I didn't want to hijack the moment, but it was such a good conversation.
No, it's okay. Christy, thank you so much for sharing your nurse practitioner experience, because what you just shared is so important. The discussion of nature versus nurture. So when you talk about the biology, the genetics of mental health disorders that can be passed down, that would be considered nature. When you talk about our environment and the homes that we're raised in, that would be considered nurture. How about it's not nature versus nurture? It's the combination of the two. So the combination of having a genetic predisposition to anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, a personality disorder, coupled with an unhealthy, toxic, or traumatic upbringing is really key to talk about, because, you can have 2 children grow up in the same home, experience the same environment, and one child experience that as trauma and the other child not experience it as trauma at all, because it really is a combination of the child's personality characteristics, the parents' personality characteristics, and the environment. The interaction of all 3 of those things can create certain situations or environments for people. When you talk about the suicide rate, Christy, let me tell you guys, and this is really important, in ages 15 to 24-year-olds, the suicide rate has skyrocketed. right? This is really why, one reason why I really wanted to have this discussion. We need to be breaking down stigma and talking about mental health. Why is the suicide rates increasing among 15 to 24-year-olds, and especially in boys? And it has especially increased in the Black community. Do you guys have any thoughts on why suicide rates? Now, listen, with this new era of social media, do you all think that social media has played a role in this, and people comparing and trying to keep up with what's going on in social media? What do you guys think is going on?
I feel like just the idea of like seeing everybody on social media and feel like you're not enough, to like you can't contribute to what everybody else is doing. Like you're just in the background, you're not really helping like with anything. It just contributes to just feeling depressed and just like not feeling you're doing enough.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing, Joshua, because yes, social media has really contributed to anxiety and depression symptoms increasing. Anybody else have anything to say about social media, Caleb?
Yeah, I think basically what close to what Josh was saying, how being able to see everything that everybody's doing, and also negativity that is put out, people aren't like as who people who would care what others think about them more. The idea of what's in others' heads is more out there, and you know what others are thinking, and it can like cause somebody to, I don't know, maybe like have it causes somebody to think more often about what is going on with others.
Oh, I like that. That makes a lot of sense, Caleb. Just like scrolling through social media and seeing what other people are doing. And can we talk about the fact that not everything we see on social media is real?
Can I can I speak on something?
Yes, Ted. Yes, please join us if you would love to turn your camera on, but if not, it's okay.
Yes, I as far as the social media, and I believe someone spoke about the suicide rate, and not just the urban community, but communities in general. I think that in a lot of cases, the adults play a major role because the children don't necessarily know or understand what is important until they're told by the adult what they believe is important. Now, when you get to social media, the things that seem to be important are your sports, your social activities, possibly gang-related communications, male-female relationships. And if you're not successful, quote unquote, with either of those, then one may feel the pressure of not being accepted or not being good, but you never see any posts about someone is a good orator, or someone is a great engineer, or
Yeah.
someone is striving to be an astronaut, or
Yeah.
someone is striving to be the best reader. Someone is striving to be the next mathematician,
Yes.
or an inventor, or things like that. And there's so many avenues that one can go, but again, the adults are the ones that put what they think is important out there, and then the children feed off of that. So when we're talking about reducing suicide rate or reducing pressures or things that aren't important, the adults almost have to look at themselves, and because they want their child to be the next Kobe Bryant or something ridiculous like that, or the next Tom Brady or whoever it may be. And And then on top of that, then you have to get to the money aspect, because if you're not making a certain amount of money, then you're deemed to be unsuccessful. But well, that's a whole other conversation. But it's just the adults, I think, that put things into the wrong perspective, and they're trying to live lives that they don't have or they can't even imagine. And those pressures trickle down to their own children, not to mention other children in society, and that causes a major problem.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Ted. And what you're talking about has sparked 3 hands being raised. So I'm just going to go in order. Start with Nafis, and then we'll start with Dr. Curry, and then Malachi. So Nafis.
First of all, thank you, Ted, for saying that. Because as you started speaking, talking about the adults, I just to speak to suicide overall. A personal testimony of mine is I'm 29 years old. I've had about 3 to 4 suicide attempts, and the first one being at 10 years old, right? Where social media wasn't even relevant at that point. It wasn't, I don't even think it was a thing. The one thing I do want to say is men need men, right? It's so many times, and I actually publicly made this complaint. I'm 29 years old, and I cannot tell you how many men, older men, have told me they would be there. And before I even start, I'm one of the people, I'm gonna call it on the carpet if I need to. And so this is one of them times. Men need men, because I cannot tell you how many times older gentlemen would come to me and say, hey, I'm going to be there. It would not be there. They would do it for the photo ops. They would do it to make themselves feel good, stuff like that. At 10 years old, I wish I would have had somebody putting their arm around my shoulder saying, it's okay, you're enough. You know what I mean? I wish I had another man saying to me like, yo, you good, bro. I cannot tell you how many times like it don't make no sense on how us as men can't even compliment each other without feeling, off guarded, or even, if I can just be transparent, homosexual about it, right? I had another man compliment me on my cologne just the other day in the Chinese store. And he was like, well, I'm not trying to come at you or nothing, but like, I was like, why does it have to, in my mind, I'm thanking him publicly, but in my mind, like, why does it have to be like that? Why can't we just compliment each other? Like, yo, bro, like, you looking handsome today. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's just a lot of insecurities within us that don't allow us to do that. But that's another conversation for another day. But there's so many women's conferences where it's being uplifted, and you get a men's conference and there's about 14 guys there. You get a women's conference like Sarah Jacob Roberts down in Texas, and it's thousands upon thousands of women there. It makes no sense, regardless of what religion. It doesn't matter. Iron sharpens iron, whatever God you serve. But at the end of the day, men, and it's time for, and I'll say even for my generation, the millennial generation, to put their arms around the younger generation and say like, yo, it's okay. Because it's way too many suicides, me being almost a victim of that. And I think it is really important to just realizing that we need each other and stop competing with one another. Because I think that's the problem. Like, we're like, by nature, men are hunters, right? So we're always just gonna hunt for the best thing. And I see what you got. And so I want that. No, you can have your own, God, your gifts will make room for you wherever you go, right? So God gave you your gift. Focus on your gift, right? It's enough for everybody. We need to stop competing against one another. And I would even say the older generation needs to stop putting down, even including my generation, needs to stop putting down the younger men that are coming up. Stop being intimidated. The greatest teachers are the ones that teach themselves out of a job. You know what I mean? So because it's their time to take the mantle. You don't need to be there all the time. You don't need the 15 minutes of fame all the time. So I just wanted to put that out there. The main focus is men need men these days.
Nafis, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing. these three, suicide attempts that you experienced in your past. I'm so glad they weren't successful. I'm so glad that you're still here, that you were still, survive, and you're doing your thing. You're walking in your purpose, Nafis. Being the first Black, and now tell me, Nafis, you're the first Black scientist.
First African American in the U.S. to get a biopharmaceutical process engineering degree in the country. So,
Excellent.
Wow. Let's celebrate that, guys. That's an accomplishment.
thank you.
That's Nafis, that's pretty impressive. The other thing too, let me ask you a question. Were you a product of a single family home, single parent home?
No, I'm actually from both parents.
And
But
so,
in home.
so I think, yeah, sometimes you think, okay, just because you may come from
Yeah.
a two-parent home, you don't need anything else. I think it speaks to the fact that we need community. We need community, and I think, it's a great thing for me. I've got three boys, 4 kids total, but I also see myself connecting with other men that I'm in contact with. And man, it is something for someone other than your father to say, man, I see you. I see what you're doing. Keep it up. Maybe put Dr. Curry may know this, that Pentecostal handshake, um, put $5 in their pocket or just something, just to say, hey, I see you, keep it going. So thank you, man, for persevering, and know that, God's got a purpose, man. God's got a purpose. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask Nafis a question?
Absolutely.
Yes, and then we'll go to Dr. Curry.
Okay, I'm sorry. You made a comment about when you wish someone put their arm around you when you were 10 years old and said that things would be okay, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm gonna ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, because you're old enough, since you're 29,
Mm-hmm.
do you see the difference, and can the difference be changed, and why do you think it came about with the way that an adult can talk to a child to quote unquote straighten them out, whereas nowadays that can't happen because I don't know whether you want to say it's society may say that it's too harsh. The child does not need to hear negativity like that, because when I was growing up, and even when you were coming up, it was, and someone else used the buzzword earlier in this conversation about tough love, or you have to have tough skin, because sometimes you need a harsh word to be spoken to wake you up so you can go in the right direction. And nowadays, I don't think that that's accepted because, well, I don't know why, but I want your take on that, and maybe you can expound on that to everyone else since you're pre-30.
Well, for me, right, thank you. That is a very tall question, but I'm gonna shoot for it here. For me, one of the things that I had to do was I wasn't a good people person relatively until my college years. And at that point, I was put in a leadership position as captain of my track and field team, right? So when you invest in the younger guys that are coming up that are eventually going to take my place, the freshmen, the sophomores, my job was to, because I was more like, dude, if you're not here to win, like, don't even talk to me, man.
Right.
But I say the investment comes in with the younger generation of actually learning them, meet them where they are, right? There were some teammates that I had that worked better off encouragement. There were some teammates that I had that worked better off of trash talk. There were some teammates that I had that worked better off of just pulling them to the side and not embarrassing them. You know what I mean? Because to each his own. You know what I mean? I can't raise somebody else's kids the way that I would raise mine. You know what I mean? So each
Mm-hmm.
child is different, and I think that's where the investment comes in at. Also, I do think that, you know, from a personal standpoint, that yeah, sometimes tough love is necessary, but yeah, I mean, is it a godly tough love, right? Let me be real, right? Because at the same time, I think about how God is with me. Like I've seen how patient he was with me. Like we're not gonna get it right the first 300 times. I'm just gonna be honest with you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But God's love is consistent, right? I get that, you know, some kids are just like you always got that one out the group, but you stick with that one got a purpose too. So I would say for the most part, yeah, it's a difference, but that's where the investment comes in. You have to put the time to put your arm around somebody, even when they don't want to. Because even the Bible says that, that, that he'll go after the one that was lost. You know what I mean? And he'll leave the 99 just for that one.
Thank you, Nafis. Pastor Curry.
Yeah, it's weird because now since all this conversation, I have like a page full of notes, but I'm just going to be very brief and say this. To respond to even our brother Nafis, to brother Ted, who had asked the question, I am 55, okay, brother. So I'm that generation they call the X, the X generation, whatever it is. But listen, I didn't have my father in my life. I was raised in the projects. My mom worked hard. My pastor and the men in my church, and we didn't have no huge mega church at that time. We were just a church group, but he taught me balance. And as rough as he was never rough to a place I didn't understand his heart. There is a difference between tough love and child abuse.
Oh,
and what I think happens called all too often is the older school.
Mm-hmm.
They believe the only way you showing, because they use that scripture, if you don't beat them, you don't love them. They believe that, you gotta browbeat. Let me tell you this, and then I'm gonna move on. My pastor, those men in our church, they knew I was damaged. They knew that I was, and to damage me further, destroy me. So what I would hear him say things like, give him time. It's gonna work right. He gave me advice. I never knew what it looked like to have a father in my house. But if you talk to anybody who know my personal life now, they would say I should get the Father of the Year award. I never knew what it looked like to be a husband, but I saw what it looked like. I experienced it because I had a great mentor, pastor, who with a group of men who loved their wives, who understood their covenant. We talk too much, but show very little. Dr. King said, I would rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. The problem I think is happening, I'm gonna say this and now somebody else can get in. We have the lost, the forgotten, and the don't care. Those three generations have happened and created the problem we are right now. The reason why I gave my age is because I don't want to appear to be this old guy, but yet I don't want to appear to be this young guy neither. I was lost, I was damaged, I was broken, really. But it was the men I saw who didn't step out on their wives, who made it a purpose to be there for their children, who poured into me, gave me chicken dinners to take back to my undergrad school because they didn't have any money to give me, who showed me what it was to be a man. When I was trying to figure out the manhood piece, is it about how many women I can sleep with to be able to verify that I am a real man? How many women can, or was it me being able to handle my business? Now, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. The counselor said to me and my mother, who was poor and didn't know any better, that he would not make it past the 8th grade. And if he gets to the 8th grade, we need to celebrate and give him the best party in the world. My pastor was the one who said, no, when he graduates from college is when we go give him a party.
Mhm.
And when you're diagnosed, which they've misdiagnosed us forever, but when you're diagnosed with that, if you get past the 8th grade, you did do well. But the reality of it is, what you do when you get 6 degrees after that? It's about being models for this generation. The lost is finding a way to keep the media the way they want it. It's not all negativity in the media, but the brothers don't have anything they can look at. I like what Brother Narcisse said. We have to find a way to mentor. The worst thing somebody can say about me is that I left them, because I believe, and I think if you come to East Zion Fair, you'll see how many men we have here and young brothers. It's important to me that brothers are handled appropriately, not maliciously. That's why I believe in balance. That's why I will get up on a Sunday morning and say, have you gone to the psychologist? If he puts you on meds, that's God's way of saying, I need to balance you out. Because in the Pentecostal church, as Pastor was saying earlier, they didn't believe in that stuff. You just pray about it and it'll be fine. But there are some things we must do. We must mentor. We must live, and we must have patience. I like that he said as well with our brothers, our young brothers who make mistakes. One of the largest pastors now in Maryland came out of this church, and he made a major mistake when he went to college. He was supposed to be the one who would save the world, but he ended up getting a girl pregnant, and a couple other things happened. And when God transformed his life, because we didn't throw him away, we all made mistakes. Some of us, you don't hear about it because we don't talk about it. But I just really am concerned when people feel, and I'm not accusing anything in this conversation, that you have to be harsh. No, you have to, by my love have I drawn thee. And it has to be a love thing. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Curry. Malachi.
Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. It was where did I begin? I think strong love and tough love is very important coming up as a man. Not only as a man, but also having purpose and driven. What drives you to become that man of God? I hear that all the time. What is a man of God? I hear that all the time, consistently. I hear all the time. So I think being trying to figure out who you are as a man makes you, man, what I'm trying to say. I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna talk about the modeling. Modeling, it's for the younger generation, social media is everything. I'm sorry, like for me, it's everything. For me, it's not everything for me, but for me, when I see Ferraris, when I see bodybuilders, when I see all my stuff that I want, it concerns me, and it gets me to a place where, am I really going to achieve that? And I think that's where a lot of the time where young men like myself have a hard time really trying to figure out life, just in general in life, how to control your emotions. Because a lot of the time, especially Black men, I'm gonna be real, Black men, sometimes we're harsh to one another. Like, bro, like, oh, you're depressed. Oh man, get over it. Oh, your girl break up with you? Oh man, get over it, bro. Whatever. Who cares about that, man? Or sometimes we don't even we don't have a father figure in our life to tell us, yo, that's wrong. What are you doing? Don't no, you gotta calm it down. You gotta calm your temper down. This is not how you do it. You gotta communicate, right? You gotta do this. A lot of time, especially in the Black community, we don't have fathers. And then you got older people. I'm gonna be honest, older people, sometimes older people are really harsh. They're not patient. They don't take the time to, like he said, to go on the level of the younger generation, what the younger generation want, not what older people want. What does the generation want? How can I be a support system to this young man instead of trying to be this macho, I'm tough, I'm hard, just, don't cry. It's okay for me, it's okay to cry. I cry. It's cool. Crying is perfectly normal. And I think that's where a lot of the time us young men are at fault. Like, we just don't have a father figure in our life. We don't have no one to lean on. And like you said, the community's there, but what's the what is the community, really doing? Are they what are they teaching them a skill? If we really want to build our Black men like really strongly, put them in school, put them in a trade, put them in welding, put them in the police force, put them all on that. Get them out there, give them hope, give them some type of peace. So that way, when they go home, they be like, oh yeah, even though I'm in this really bad environment, I still got something to grasp on. I still got something that this community giving me, I can really hold on to. If we achieve that, I think we would see more results in younger Black men, not killing each other, not becoming rappers, because that's the new age, gang, bang, bang. Hey, hey, I listen to it. I know what's going on. So it's it's a whole thing when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, I just want to say that. Yeah.
Malachi, thank you so much for being real and really talking about the issues that are facing your generation. How old are you again, Malachi?
I'm 18 years old.
18. Okay.
Can I ask Malachi and not, I think it's not Feast a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
See now it's funny because both of you have said something that's very, very key. And I'm gonna bring up one word that I think is key because we're talking about the Black men. The word being, and Nafis brought it up, but he didn't get in depth into it. And him being a track coach, I wanna hear what he has to say. The word is competition. And when you're competing, you may not have the time to be quote unquote patient. And Malachi brought it up as far as putting our children into school. That's still part of the competition because you're competing with life. And someone has to say, you have to get a job. You have to go to school. You have to get good grades in school to get a job. And it's not a matter of not saying anything or not saying anything with a strong tone, because the competition is life. And if you don't follow these steps, you can quote unquote lose. And that's going to what Nafis was talking about with the track, because if you don't push a certain child on the track, they're not going to be part of the track team, or your track team will lose. So it's about competition, but it's about life competition. And I think Malachi can understand where I'm going with that, because it's the way things are right now. We are competing, and I think that people use the word competition in a negative context, and it shouldn't be. I mean, over in India right now, they're putting together mandates where their workforce works 70 hours a week because they want to outdo China for producing technology. That's competition.
Well, shouldn't competition be internal as opposed to external?
I think it's both.
But it really, that's the problem. The problem is we have put more emphasis on the external than the internal. The greatest competitor in anyone's life, and I was taught this, and I stand on it, is yourself.
That's true.
I am not my brother. I don't want to hear no one telling me your brother did this, your brother did that. That's why this generation is lost.
Yes,
because
I agree with that.
they want what someone else has. If your best is a B or C, I don't think you should be browbeat because your brother was an A student. We have to learn to get into the intellectual curiosity of the young people, young brothers, and learn where they are. The patient piece I kept hearing was about figuring out where they are and loving them from that point. It doesn't mean they're going to be a failure. It's not, you're not enabling them, but what you're doing is you're bringing out who they are, and you're saying, look, be your best. I believe that a person at their best is more than good enough. But when you're trying to be somebody else, you're going to stay depressed, you're going to stay stressed out, and you're going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think competition is a great thing, but I think being overly being overly confident or having more competition, you can lose yourself. You can lose yourself easily. So is it so I get what you're saying. Yes, you know, everyone's competitive, you know, men are competitive, yada yada yada. But guess what? All you're gonna do is wear yourself out. You're gonna get burnt out trying to, oh yeah, I gotta get here, I gotta get here, I gotta get. It's cool, maybe like maybe when you're mid-40s, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I don't have time, I got this, I got that. But as a young person, I got all the time in the world, you know, and I get it. You know, it's competitive. Life is competitive. But what I was trying to say is for the older generation, if they want to really, really help us and really try to get to understand us, meet us at our level. Yeah. Have patience with us. Like for real. Like patience will go far. And it's rewarding for not only for the older generation, but it's rewarding for the new generation. Because guess what? It's helping them long way. And I'm gonna let you know this. Not a lot of them that live in the projects, that live in the hood and that are surrounded by gangs have no hope. Mm-hmm. They have no hope. So why? So they have no hope. They have nothing going on for themselves. Like the kids are going to school. Yeah, but do they have food in the fridge? They don't. You see what I'm trying to say? Do they have shoes? Do they have clean socks? You see what I'm trying to say? So it's more about not being competitive. It's more about trying to figure out life as a young man, as a responsible young man who can live a decent life in this world, in our microwave society. You know, because a lot of young people, they want to put $10 inside the microwave, press the button, next thing you know, it's 10 million. Then it don't work like that. And it's true. I mean, it's crazy to me, you know. And yeah, I'll leave it like that.
Thanks, Malachi. We're gonna have Nafis weigh in.
Hey, first of all, Malachi, you said you're 18?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, man, all right, well beyond your years, man. I would say the word competition, even if it's against yourself, it can be a good and a bad thing, right? Because with competition comes comparison, and comparison is the thief of joy, right? So with that being said, for me, it's important for us men to, and if you guys don't mind, I just want to tell a story, like a quick testimony, not long at all, but it's important to know your purpose so you're not at least competing in the wrong thing. If you don't know your purpose, you'll be doing what person A and B, you'll be trying to play basketball when God called you to do something completely different. Right? And he called you to do something completely different because it's a group of people that he has assigned you to mentor, right? And I remember in 2019, I was an intern at a lab, and they were trying to start a side company and they needed somebody that was black to be on the board, right? So they hollered at your boy. And it was a guy, he came on the board. He was from Denver, Colorado. He was actually one of the founders of this software called Blockchain. I'm pretty sure you guys probably heard it. It was just some random software. But blockchain. So I asked him about the software and I said, what's blockchain, right? And so he's like, well, it's this and it's that. And I listened to his enthusiasm. I listened to the way that he spoke about it. He was like, well, it's this, it's that. It has some issues here, but over time, it'll start to develop and it'll get better there and here, right? And it dawned on me, the more I got to know the creator, the more I got to know the product.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was the more I got to know God, the more I got to know who I was and what I was assigned to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's, I don't know how that even correlates with this subject right now.
A lot.
I felt so led to say that because it's just like not a lot of us even, I would say we got to direct our men back to God so we can have a proper godly love, right? I can't be apologetic for talking about God like this. So I won't, but you know what I mean? Because that's what it's really about. Because us men, we can't lead with emotional principles. We have to lead with godly principles, right? Because so many of us are leading with emotion, right? But a lot of us need to lead with godly love because that's the proper way. Because a lot of us on here are going to be, if you're not now, you're going to be leading families. You're going to be a leader of men one day, right? You're going to be leading people, at your companies, at your job, or whatever you're doing. So I would say it's very crucial to get to know God, the creator, so you can get to know the product, which is yourself.
Thank you so much, Nafis. So we have Caleb who raised his hand and then Isaiah. So Caleb.
So I was thinking what you were saying with purpose and what you were called for reminded me of Romans 12, where it says we each, like God gave us each like our own gifts, and to pursue those gifts that God gave us. If we're called to do this, then do this, instead of going for competing in something else that somebody else is called to do and not you, and straying off of what God has planned out for you.
Yes, thank you so much, Caleb. I'm so happy to hear you all talking about purpose. Isaiah.
I agree with what Caleb was saying, because I feel like that like everyone has different traits that can bring to the table as their calling, but sometimes as men we don't see it like that. And the way we kind of see it, it's kind of more trying to one up people, like trying to be like for everyone going with the same thing instead of leading to what God has called for you to do, but trying to be someone that you're not. And then a couple of Sundays ago, when my pastor was talking about like of how we need more discipline to really be able to really see God's love, and along with the patience and all the other stuff that we really have to see, like the principles, because his principles are always permanent, but some of us think they always interchange because of what you really think of what you think that you're called for, but God has another plan. So for some of it, I really think it really boils down to like about like seeing what God has for you instead of trying to like be other people that you're not. Now, I want to add one more thing. Like even in church, whenever one of my pastors says, "I want all the men to lead the house in praise," I feel like that also contributes, because like just because like the way that you got praise dancers, you got people who shout, who bow, who run. I feel like we don't take advantage of that as much as too, because they think that it's more of a thing for women to do. But I will admit, I do all that ever since I was little. In your arms, mom. You know it better than anybody.
Yeah.
that's why I really also think that like we don't I think that we listen to the way women perceive things a little bit, because the men and the women mindset, it goes hand in hand. They don't work the same because everyone has different views of what they see, but I feel like we don't go into our own view of seeing it and we let other people control it. That really has like an effect on how we act.
Thank you so much for sharing, Isaiah. Discipline and men praising God. That's one of our weapons of warfare, that Pastor Ted talks about. So I'm so glad. And yes, as a baby, my son almost knocked me out, y'all. We was going down the church aisle. He was about 8, 9 months, and he heard that church music, and we're walking down, and he almost smacked. I said, "Oh my goodness." And so my baby still loves to praise God. I'm grateful for that. So Pastor Joshua, Pastor Jonathan and Joshua.
You
Oh,
prophesying, it's Joshua.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I agree with Isaiah was talking about how patience in the Lord and just like knowing He's gonna guide you and what He wants you to do. And then you're still like, we're still young, we still have things to figure out. We still also know that God has a plan for us. So you could try things, just know that God has a purpose for you. Don't feel like He's like leaving you astray or like He's not with you when God always is with you, and that He will guide your life and He will do like if you listen and you call on Him and listen to Him, He will guide you the right way, and He will put you in. He will put you in places that He wants you to be in that you need to be in.
yes, I love that, Jonathan. I love hearing all you guys talk about purpose. You know what, we touched on it a little bit, but what do you all think about physical health? Listen, our physical health is so important. Actually, exercise. So 150 minutes a week, that would be about 30 minutes, 5 days a week of physical exercise that gets your heart rate up into a fat burning zone. Naturally, will improve any anxiety or depression symptoms. I know we have a lot of athletes on the call. So what do you guys think in terms of physical health and how it relates to our mental and our spiritual health? Caleb.
So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about mental health being assisted just through physical health being changed. I mean, when I was younger, I used to not do anything at all. Like I didn't get any exercise, and I would always be like my mental health wasn't at the best space that it could have been, and I just saw like a change in my physical health and getting health like in shape and healthier. It kind of relieves a lot of stress that your mind has and a lot of anxiety, like thinking not being able to do this. Like there is also pressure from around you of being a man. You always should be like able to do this or that, and that like just like getting to a point physically where you should be, it helps relieve like stress even in that aspect as well.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing that, Caleb. So even at your age, Caleb, how old are you again?
14.
14. So do you experience that? Like just feeling like pressure to know how to physically like handle things?
Yeah, sometimes in like let's say my there's something that needs to be fixed around the house or whatever, and my dad is older and he's not able to do everything on his own, so it's either me or my brother, and if I weren't able to help out, it would be like a probably kind of like a mental burden. Should I be able to do this?
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Caleb. I'm sure maybe others can relate. Isaiah, you have your hand up. What did you want to share? And then we'll go to Josh.
Yeah, I agree with what Caleb was saying, but I'm gonna just jump back to the mindset thing real quick because I'm gonna say from personal experience. When I was younger, people would always, like I could always see like people need to exercise. I always see you mom exercising, my dad exercising, and I ain't really take it seriously enough until I started until I started to start playing soccer at a higher level. When I was really, I didn't really have to run that much. It wasn't as competitive as what I need to do. But I just think that the mindset was that not to like take it seriously enough, and that's what I'm kind of seeing now with some of the generation now, like the middle schoolers growing up who like to be athletes, that we're not taking the proper precautions seriously enough to the point where you're able to like develop in the level of potential. Because like as my 7th grade wrestling coach, who really pushed me to be like, I need you to drop a pound, I need you to drop this for weight class, all this other stuff. He always told me, don't talk about it, be about it. And that really helped me to really fix the way I would really, and then I kind of went back into that place when COVID started. I was inactive. I was just eating. I ain't do nothing. I was eating on my game hours straight until I started to get more of the freshman year or 8th grade year, freshman year, when I was really trying to really balance a change of how school is and of getting my physical health straight. But then it really started till I started to work out until I dropped around 30 pounds and then dropped 10 more this year to really be able to really be at my potential of what I was really called for to be at, of the way I compete.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of weight. I'm glad the doctor said you're healthier. I would be worried. I'm sorry, y'all. My mama kicked in.
Your face. I saw your face. I was like, whoa.
Yes. Isaiah, played, actually, I had both of my sons in soccer since they were 3 years old. So Isaiah, thanks for sharing the difference in your mindset when in your mindset, you started to make the shift like, oh, this is more than recreational, and like you said, your wrestling coach kind of helped you get there. So thanks for sharing that. Joshua or Pastor Jonathan.
It was just that, like, back to how exercising helps with mental, it just helps me because like I see it as how like in the Bible it says your body's a temple, and just as working on yourself, and just I play sports, so I know I have to work hard, I know I have to exercise so I can be better in my sport, and just so like it helps me mentally to keep my mind straight, and really creates a lot of discipline for me to know I need to get up and not just sit on the couch and go work out and do something so I can like better myself and like achieve my dreams, what I want to do for football and just wrestling, and just be able to like be a better person for myself.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. So you wrestle and you play football, Joshua?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I got to brag on him. He was he led the division in sacks this year.
On now.
Well, go ahead, Josh. Let's celebrate that.
Now.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So, you want to go to college?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You want to play sports in college, Joshua?
Yes, ma'am.
Nice. Good for you. Reverend Curry has to run because, Daddy of the Year has to help his daughter with homework. You better go ahead. We are not, hating. We're going to be rounding up this discussion soon anyway. Reverend Curry, is there anything you want to share before you go?
Yes, thank you all so much for allowing me to be a part of this discussion. And if I can be a blessing in any way, I want to make sure I avail myself.
Thank you so much, Reverend Curry. We really appreciate all of your wisdom, knowledge, your transparency, and vulnerability. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good stuff. Dr. Rhodes, I wrote a book back in 2019, and the book is titled YOLO, You Only Lead One, 8 Principles for Leading Yourself Before You Lead Others. And I hear us talking about disciplines. And in one of the chapters, I talk about the 7 people that everybody needs in their life. The first person they need is a coach. They need a counselor. They need a critic. They need a confidant. They need a challenger. They need a champion. They need a clergy, right? And so I talk about kind of all of the things that we need. I think was that 6 or 7? Because I've
3, 4, 5. No, that was 7.
that was
I'm
7.
down. Mhm.
Yeah. So one of the things is, you have to see yourself as worthy of all of these things because we're in it for the long haul. I'm looking at my children's children. And my sister said it earlier, how I want to be able to have my children to look at my grandkids to look at my painting and say, man, granddaddy, a great granddaddy or great great granddaddy did some tremendous things. And so with all of us, guys, we're making history right now. This is life. This is not like a dress rehearsal. This is not, like a dry run. You only get one chance at it. And this is it. So you're living your life. I'm working on another book, and the working title is Stop Being Careful. Everybody's telling you, be careful, be careful. Don't do this. And I'm like, no, we need to not be careful and to take risks.
Yeah.
Because at the rate we're going, we see what's happening overseas. We see what's happening in other countries, and how people are like looking at America like, I'm trying to take America out. So what we need is our best and brightest. So guys, I want to encourage you, be the best in school, be the best in your community, serve in your church, get to know who God is. I say this, you will know who you are once you find out who God is. So ask God, like, God, show me my purpose, show me my destiny. And then the last thing is this, we talked about the sports thing and everybody wants to be an athlete and everything. And even my son, I said, you probably, yeah, you're definitely going to do it, but have a backup plan. There are more millionaires who are business owners and dentists and scientists than there are millionaire basketball players. So there's more than one track. There's more than one way. So ask God, like, God, how did you create me? How did you uniquely design me? And then you will be those faces in places and spaces that need to see you there. So, this is tremendous. The ones you have on here, Dr. Curry and Brother Nafis. We need you guys there. And then, kind of open up. People invite me to come in and talk to young people. I had a chance. I'm actually supposed to go to a multicultural event at a school on Thursday. Well, I got a phone call from a funeral home saying, hey, we need you to do a funeral. And I had to weigh it out. I said, listen, would I rather spend time with 82 people that are alive or go to funeralize somebody who they can probably get somebody else to do that funeral? I said, listen, I want to be around life. I want to be around people that I can impact. So these young people are going to be able to impact me. I'll impact them. And that's what it's about. So, it starts at home. My kids, they have to see me leading out. But then I got to expand my community. So guys, do it. You all are making history, and see yourself as valuable. God does.
Oh my God, this was such an awesome way, Pastor Jonathan, to end our discussion. I am so grateful for you all taking the time on a Monday night to share in this inaugural Boys to Men Health, Physical, Mental, and Spiritual Health. I am just very grateful for you all, your vulnerability, sharing your stories, and really uplifting and encouraging each other. So with that, does anybody have any final comments before we end our discussion?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, I believe Pastor Jonathan, where can we purchase your book, good sir?
Go to JonathanLeath.com. JonathanLeath.com.
All right.
You can order that book, and I would love to pour into as many people as I can.
And tell us the title again, Pastor Jonathan.
Oh, YOLO. I should have, man, you know what? I should have had my book up here, like
right.
Serious about it. YOLO. You only lead one.
Okay.
8 principles for leading yourself before you lead others. Those on the panel, I got you. Don't y'all order the book. I got you.
Oh, go
Everybody else watching online, go to my website and get that book. But the panel, I got you. I got the panel.
Yes, thank you so much for that gracious offer, Pastor Jonathan, pouring into the next generation. Isaiah, is there something you wanted to share?
I just want to say I really enjoyed this because I'm not like the best at like opening up about how I really see things and perspective. So it was I really enjoyed it. So are we gonna make these yearly, Mom? Like
We sure are, son. This is the inaugural. That means this is the
That's
very
right.
first Boys to Men Health. So if you all come back and bring 10 of your friends with you. So when we're here next year, y'all, it's going to be packed. This Zoom is going to be packed with a lot of boxes of people. I would love it if you guys would have me. I appreciate you guys for letting me in on your discussion. All right.
Good stuff.
Thank you, guys. Anybody else have any final comments before we end? Well, thank you all so much, and I hope that everybody has a blessed evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I guys have a good night.